Good afternoon, everybody, on this beautiful but cold Sunday afternoon. Now, we've already received our first snow for the season, and it's just 2 weeks before Christmas, and I'm thinking comfort food. And one of my favorite things to cook is a chicken pot pie. And I've not made one in a while, so I've been making preparations to show you how that I make my own chicken pot pie. Now, I'm starting with making the crust, or the part that goes over the top of the filling. Now, what I did was I got maybe about 2-3 cups of self-rising flour. Now, I use the unbleached self-rising flour, and I cut in some butter and some shortening. This is almost like making biscuits, but I am going to roll it out when this dough chills for about 30 minutes, and so that is why I am making it first, so it'll give me time to show you how to make the filling. Now, I used a potato masher. If you have a pastry blender, you can do that, and it's already cut down into about the size of small peas. And I'm going to use, and I'm going to get a fork or a spoon. You can probably use your hands too, and just blend in some milk a little at a time. And you just want to make sure that your milk is cold and your butter is cold. It wouldn't hurt to put your shortening in the refrigerator as well. I didn't do it, but you can. It's the best way to do. If you want a good flaky crust, I think I'm going to finish it off with my hands. Make sure that you have clean hands. I'm going to put a little bit of milk in here. You don't want to overdo it on the milk because you don't want sticky dough. And if you have sticky dough just like I do, you can put a little bit of flour in it to make it enough to come together and to do what like it should do. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put just a little bit more flour in here. It'll be easier for me to handle. And I'm going to refrigerate for probably about 30 minutes or so. And stay tuned for the filling part. Guys, I've got the crust for my chicken pot pie refrigerating for about 20 to 30 minutes or until this filling gets done. You want to make sure that your crust is the dough for the crust is good and well chilled. It'll be easier for you to handle. Now, in the pot, I am making the filling. Now, what I did was I heated up some oil and butter in this pot. Now, you want to use a good sized pot because I am making a good sized pie. And I got my heat probably about a medium high heat. And first thing I did was I put 2 packages of frozen mixed vegetables. That is the shortcut to having to open up cans and everything else. So you want to go to the store and get 2 packs of frozen mixed vegetables, which has got your corn, your green beans, your peas, and your carrots. And I cooked it and stirred it for about maybe 5 minutes or so. And then I peeled about 6 potatoes and cubed them up like I would be making mashed potatoes. And I just put them in the pot, and I'm cooking them for about another 5 more minutes. Now, you don't have to cook this all the way through, because by the time it's all said and done, everything is going to be good and done to put in the pan. One thing that you do not want to do, you don't want to go anywhere or talk on the phone. You have to really concentrate on what you're doing. Focus on what you're doing, because if you don't, you'll just ruin the pie. Now, I am ready to put some seasoning in. I'm going to put some salt. A couple of teaspoons or so of salt, a little bit of pepper. You want to make sure that your pie is well seasoned. Some Italian seasoning. I'll say a couple of teaspoons or so of each of these spices. Some onion powder. I've been craving chicken pot pie here lately, and I've not made one in a while, and I'm making one right now.
and some garlic powder. Now I got all these in here, and I am just stirring it around a little bit. You have to stir this constantly. Now, I got some flour. You just need a few tablespoons of flour, because what's going to happen when I put in the chicken broth here in just a minute or so, it's going to thicken up. Now, you want to make sure that you cook the flour for just a minute or two. I might need to put just a little bit more flour in. You don't want to eat raw flour if you catch my drift. So, I'm cooking it for just a minute or two. The oil and the butter and the juices from the vegetables are going to make it turn to a really good sauce. This is when you do not want to leave the pot unattended, because it is starting to stick to the pot, and if you're not careful, it will burn. Now, I'm going to open up this chicken broth. This is a low sodium chicken broth, and the reason why I use that is that I put salt on it, and you want to control the salt. Now, if I need more salt, I'll put just a little bit more in it, but I don't think I'll need any more. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit in there at a time. Now, if I were you, I would probably have about 2 cartons of chicken broth just in case. Now, I'm going to stir this a little at a time, and as time goes on, I'm going to put a little more chicken broth in here, and I'm going to turn my heat up to about a medium high. Now, what you want to do, you want to let this cook for about 20 to 25 minutes. You have to constantly stir to give it the right consistency that it needs. And towards the end of cooking time, I'm going to add some boneless chicken that I've already cut up. Now, I say this over and over again. Make sure that you wash your hands after you handle raw meat, because if you don't, you'll get sick from food poisoning, and you don't want to do that. You do not want to make yourself or anybody else sick. Make sure that you put your dirty dishes in the sink, dishwasher, or whatever when you get through. You don't want to cross-contaminate anything. Now, I'm going to let this cook, like I said, for about 20-25 minutes. I'm going to add some chicken broth as needed, and I'm going to put in the chicken towards the end of cooking time, and I want you to stay tuned for the assembly. Alright, I want you to take a look at our filling. We have let it cook for about 25 to 30 minutes, and I had to pull out my big pan. Now, this big pan has come in handy, and this is going to cook even more when we bake it in the oven. Now I'm going to roll out the dough, and you want to knead it a couple times. This has been refrigerated for about 25-30 minutes or so, and just make sure your surface is well floured in your dough. And I'm going to roll it out like you would a pie crust, but not as thin as a pie crust, because I'm not going to cover the whole pan with the dough. I'm sort of going to make a lattice top, as if you would a cherry pie or an apple pie. Now, in here I'm going to come with a pizza cutter. You could also, and I think what I'll do is I'm just going to cut it into squares. Doesn't have to be too perfect. And I'm going to spread this right over the top. Oh, I cannot wait. This is going to be so good to eat. Now, I'm going to finish this. And I've got my oven preheated to 350 degrees. And I'm going to stick it in the oven. And I'm going to bake it for about 35 minutes or so. You want to make sure that your crust is good and brown. Stay tuned for more of my comfort food dinner.